Dennis McKinney!
Thank you all. Anya was very generous. She said, "Would you love to go first tonight?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "We'll make the American go first." Gullible American. I have with me my 1-year-old daughter and my lovely wife, Amy. She's really the only one who ever laughs at my jokes. So I'm hoping to change that tonight. So if you're agreeable, perhaps just a courtesy laugh would be nice occasionally. I'm glad to be visiting Galway, a beautiful city. Great to be here from the States, attending this service learning and community engagement conference. I study culture, and so I get the opportunity to learn about how students see themselves as engaged citizens and how faculty get to be involved in supporting local communities. See, she's already cheering. Right on cue. I get to sort of make observations about interesting things that we sometimes take for granted, right? If you might permit me, I'd like to make a couple observations on something very important that's been bugging me for the past several days, Irish road signs. Rented a car at Dublin Airport, all was going well, drove off from the rental car company. "This is great, no problem. Honey, you're on the wrong side!" Correction, made the correction, of course. So the Irish road signs, I kind of feel like there's all sorts of squiggly lines. I'm trying to figure out what they are. So all of a sudden we see these sort of diagonal lines coming, 3 diagonal lines. Do you see these things? 3 diagonal lines, right? And then all of a sudden there's 2 diagonal lines, and I'm getting nervous, and my palms are sweating and squirming in my seat. 1 diagonal line, and I turned to my wife. I said, "Either there's something important up here, or we're going to drive off a cliff." I really have no idea. Thankfully, it wasn't a cliff; it was just something. So I have my notes up here because I wrote them on my hand and I washed my hands. So I'll look at thankfully, Jessamine had tape. So my neighbor, I told him I was going to Ireland for this conference, and he said, "Oh, I have family over there. Patrick O'Malley is a cousin of mine. If you see him, tell him I said hello." Why would Patrick O'Malley? First of all, there's probably 1 million Patrick O'Malleys, right? And why would he be concerned about Joe O'Malley, my neighbor, who has not heard from him or seen from him in 8 generations, right? Well, actually, I did meet Patrick O'Malley. He said to say hello to Joe for me. But many Americans think that they have long-lost cousins in Ireland, and so say hello. So thankfully, I met Patrick O'Malley. I have a busy family. I have 4 kids. Busy job. I teach part-time at the university where I work in North Carolina. And so just the other day, my wife said, "This weekend, we've been so busy, we are locking ourselves in the bedroom." Smile. Said, "That sounds interesting." She said, "No, we're cleaning." One of the things about culture in North Carolina is I've only lived there for about 4 years. And so North Carolina has interesting culture, right? So just when I first moved there, I decided to transfer my license from the previous state I lived in. And so I thought I'd just go to the motor vehicle company, the organization, and go and transfer my license. And so I decided to go and just, it would be easy, right? So I go and fill out the paperwork. Well, then I learned that you need to take an actual test, which I haven't taken in 30 years. So I go, I take the test, I fail miserably for the test, and so I'm all bummed out. And so I go back to work the next day, and my coworker says very compassionately, very empathetically, my North Carolinian coworker, "Oh, bless your little heart. Bless your little heart." So I got home that day. I said, well, I was really bummed about missing and failing the test. And so my coworker was very compassionate and said, "Bless your heart." So it turns out that bless your heart is not a compassionate thing to say in North Carolina. Bless your heart basically means you stupid idiot, you have zero common sense and very little intellect. What's wrong with you? So that was an observation of culture that I learned the hard way. So a couple years ago I finished my PhD, right? And so it took me a long time. I was proud of the fact that I finished my PhD. I'm the oldest of 13 kids, so my parents say, I think we have someone who finished his doctorate in our family. I'm not quite sure of his name. He's somewhere in the lineup of the 13, but regardless, we're very proud of him. So it took, a long 8 years, and so I'm happy to say that I'm finished. But, sometimes the PhD thing gets translated as probably high debt, or perhaps head damage, or parents have doubts. So I finished, thankfully, and so I'm proud to say that I am able to share that with my kids. And so when I was about to graduate, just a couple years ago, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and so I said, look guys, Daddy's going to finish his doctorate, right? It's pretty exciting, ha ha. Dr. Daddy. Dr. Daddy's, you can call me Dad if you want, Dr. Daddy. So my daughter, my 10-year-old, sort of looked at me skeptically and said, so you're not going to be the kind of doctor that really helps people? Well, in a manner of speaking, maybe. And so I turned to my son, who's 8, and said, look, he's excited. Daddy's going to graduate with his PhD. And then my son said, so does this mean you're going to make a lot more money? I said, oh, bless your heart. So I do teach, and I teach an online course, which is exciting, because I really only have to worry about what I'm wearing from the top up, right? So when I do my video lectures, I just have to worry about what shirt I'm wearing. So I can really, teach from my pajamas or teach naked from the waist down. So just the other day, though, I had a student who emailed me, with one of those red flag emails, like urgent, and it was in all capital letters. So what could be so urgent about this class, Introduction to Leadership Studies? This is not all that urgent, right? So this is like, the emergency room or anything like that. So the student said, Professor McConey, I have been looking all over, and I cannot find the location for our online class. So, I had to compose myself, and I responded politely, but scratching my head. Online class. So I had a carefully scripted syllabus for my leadership studies course, all sorts of interesting things about leadership studies, leadership theory, lots of NPR videos and audio stories and skills on how you can practice your leadership. So then President Trump comes along. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to scrap my syllabus and make it one line saying, do the opposite of President Trump and you will get an A. At his leadership. She's like, get off the stage. So working at a university, we talk about, in my family, what do you want to do when you grow up? What is your career, right? And so that's one of the virtues of working at a university, is because it's always part of the conversation. So it kind of infiltrates the culture of my family. And so since my daughter was born, my son, who's 8, has now become the chief comedian of the family, right? So he can walk into a room and all she does is cackle, right? So he walks into a room, hey, and she giggles, right? So now his career choice, he wanted to be a veterinarian, his career choice now is baby comedian. So I thought, that's interesting. I haven't heard of a baby comedian. He said, yeah, because I'm really funny when it comes to babies, okay? So picture a room full of babies, and I'm on the stage telling jokes, and that's it, right? So I thought, well, that's kind of fun, but when you're 25 and you want to be a baby comedian, little awkward, like, what baby wants to spend their hard-earned money on an amateur comic, So he's like, Daddy, I really don't do that. I was like, honey, bless your heart.